Today, we're going to be covering a topic that you see a lot of on the internet, and that is why you would put a rear wing only on a front wheel drive car. Because many people talk about the drives going to the front, so why would you want downforce on the rear that's lifting the front wheels up? And basically it boils down to the fact that, yes, a wing behind your rear axle is going to cause a loss of traction on the front as the speed increases. But the overall benefit can be seen in your net lap time in your cornering and braking. And I'm going to go into depth as to why that's the case with a rear balanced aero that's not exactly balanced. Now let's just start off with a little disclaimer. I still stand by what I said in my Do Cars Spoilers Actually Work video. For basic road applications on heavy road cars at low speeds, wings on cars don't actually do anything that you can notice. But let's consider theoretical performance improvements and how adding a rear wing could help with lap times in, say, a Lightning car, or even, let's say you had a Ricer with a big spoiler and it's going around a lap and it's just on the rear. I'm still going to show you how that can be an improvement. So normally when we talk about aerodynamics, we want aerodynamic balance, okay? We want to basically make it so that the aero at the front and the rear is even, so we have it matched to wherever our center of gravity is. So on a front wheel drive car, our engine's forwards, our center of gravity is probably about here. So you would think that you'd need a decent splitter size there to get a bit of downforce back if you wanted to run any sort of wing at the rear. But we can actually do something a little bit trickier. If you watch my How Does Ackerman Actually Work video, you'll see that basically in low speed corners, you need to overcome a yaw inertia as well as just turn the car into the corner. Now this means that at low speeds, tighter corners, your car will inherently understeer. Now most people would already know this. If you've ever driven a car around a hairpin, you know that even if it's balanced normally, it generally will understeer a little bit in the hairpin unless you set it up really well beforehand. So we can see from that that at low speed, we're understeering. So let's balance the car so that at low speed it's neutral. Okay, let's strip a little bit more grip off the rear axle, give it to the front. You can see my How to Anti-Roll Bars Work video on how that works. Now, we've now got the front with more grip and the rear with less grip. Now this means that at high speed, when we turn it into a corner, we now have an inherently oversteery car. There's less yaw moment that you need at the higher speed corner. So you're relying more on ultimate grip. So your previously neutral car in a low speed corner will now be oversteering in a high speed corner. Now that's not great because the car's going to feel sketchy, it's going to feel very hard to control. So what can we do? We want to make the rear end planted more as the speed increases because the requirement for the yaw inertia is dropping. So we add aero at the rear, we don't balance it out at the front. And that will mean that as the speed increases, the grip will return to the rear axle, therefore actually balancing our car out as we go. Our center of pressure from our downforce may be behind our center of gravity, but because we've set up our suspension such that it's naturally oversteery, the aero is actually bringing it back to a neutral balance. And that's why you can actually get a car that works well with just a rear wing. Of course, let's now say we're not actually doing anything tricky with our suspension and we haven't set it up to be oversteery in high speed so that it's neutral in the low speed. And instead we're just dealing with a normal car, we've taken a street car, we're taking the Ricer approach of just throwing some random part on it. What you're going to see is around a lap time, you're going to see a benefit in braking because of the increased drag as well as the downforce on the rear axle, which is going to translate to an overall increase in grip once you hit the brakes and your weight transfers forward. And in cornering, if the rear wing was on line or fore of the rear axle, we would actually see an improvement in cornering. And if it was rear, depending on how understeery the car is, you'd see a lack of improvement. Of course, this scenario changes a little bit when we're under power, and this is the thing that most people talk about. They're like, oh, you don't want rear downforce on a front wheel drive car. The thing that you got to remember is that a circuit is so much more than just powering out of corners, okay? If you can get superior traction in braking zones, that makes up for inferior acceleration out of the corners. So it's all a compromise sort of thing. Obviously, yes, we do want good aerodynamic balance, but you may still see a lap improvement with just a rear wing. You don't necessarily need front and rear aero. Also, having the understeer inherent from the rear aero balance and also the inherent stability of having your aerodynamics rear means that a novice driver may find the car a little bit easier to handle. The other thing I want you to take away from this is that a car doesn't necessarily have to feel balanced to go fast. Okay? You can set up a car that the driver hates, but if it's 1 second a lap faster, who cares what they feel like? The car is faster. So just keep that in mind for any setup changes, that if you're racing, you're actually going for the fastest time, not the most driver enjoyment. So that's something to keep in mind. Just as a final disclaimer, I'd just like to add that I don't condone rice in any form. If you're adding something to your car, I really would think that you would want to do it so that it's doing something. So that's half the reason why I make these videos. But keep that in mind before you reply angrily in the comments section saying that I'm a ricer. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that settles a few arguments out there, and hopefully see you next time.